Welcome today to Coffee and Conversation. I'm so happy the sun is shining for this program because, as I'm going to tell you in a moment, welcome back Sean Kent from Mass Audubon. He is here to do part of a three-part series, which was funded by Mass Cultural Council, a grant by Mass Cultural Council. So we're really lucky to have him here to do this on their behalf. And so today he's going to do a talk about backyard and migratory birds. And then for those of you who are interested, following the presentation, there'll be a walk out back on our trail where hopefully we'll see some of the birds that he'll talk about. And then if you noticed in the newsletter, part 3 to this program is a printmaking workshop, which is going to be held later on in the month. Currently it's full with a wait list, but if there's a lot of interest, we talked about maybe doing a second program at some point. All right, excellent. So thank you, Sean.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Sean Kent from Mass Audubon, and this is also, like I said, funded by the Walpole Cultural Council, these three-part programs here. And I just want to give you a little bit more of a sense of what's going on in Walpole. You've got this beautiful trail right out back where you have a lot of birds and other animals that are active here, and you may not even notice them when they're here. So I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a background about that, but feel free to ask any questions as we're going along. Let me know if you can't see anything or anything like that. But drop my pencil. Most of the pictures here I've also taken, so I can talk about them intimately, and they're all basically from Canton, including some from like the past couple of days right here. So as the season starts to come back, you know, the birds are coming back. Bluebirds now sometimes don't migrate, but they typically do. But here you got an eastern bluebird female right here. And I took this maybe Monday, you know, or last Friday, or like right here. And then again, same thing. They nest in holes in trees. And so they do really well in bird boxes or bird houses like this of the right size. And then when I went for a quick walk this morning, and I highlight this because I do think the next bird that I'm going to show probably is around here, and that's this bird right here. Okay, so this is from like 10:30 this morning. Okay, and so this is a barred owl right here, and I do think you'll have it in it. There's a very good chance it'll be in this habitat right around the senior center with the water that's here, you know, the mice, the birds, but they also fish a lot too. So they'll go into water and pull fish and frogs out. And I'm actually going to show some videos of that as well too. But here it is from both perspectives and you can see where it really blends in really quite well. And you can see the red haze that you're seeing right now in the trees, those are all red maple flowers. And so that's what's blooming right now, or another maple flower, or maybe there's another tree that I'm mistaking that might be in bloom. But when you see that little bit of a red haze right now, that's from the flowers that are just starting to bloom over the next couple of weeks from all the trees that are coming out. And I got here a little bit early, and I don't know if you're familiar with this app, but this is from Cornell University right here, okay? And this is called Merlin, and it's on you can get it on your phone, and I can show people how to download it at the end. But you can record bird songs. And when the birds come up, and so you can see this was at 12:33 p.m. is when just lunchtime, a half an hour ago. And these are all the birds that were in the parking lot. You had a brown-headed cowbird, a robin, a song sparrow. This is the song sparrow right here. A tufted titmouse, a cardinal, and a white-throated sparrow. And it was a 6-minute long recording while I was in the parking lot here. So this is the white-throated sparrow that was here. This, believe it or not, a lot of, like people might go to Florida in the wintertime. White-throated sparrows come here, and they spend the winter here. And they're going to be migrating. And then here's what its song sounds like. And I'll play it again, but it's basically, oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada. Oh, there, okay? Which is a little more topical than I expected in terms of things going on. Yeah. And you'll hear this calling a lot right now, and it's going to be gone in about a week. It's going to migrate back up to New Hampshire and, northern New England, Maine, Vermont. Okay. And then here's the song sparrow. This is here all winter, and it's here all summer, and it nests here. And this is one bird that if you recognize it a little bit, you'll hear the song a lot. And here's its one. And that's a good one to kind of, look for, because then if you start to recognize that one, you can be like, oh, that's a song sparrow, and then that's another bird, to start to learn a little bit of bird songs there. And they're not really fussed by humans. They'll be pretty close to you singing. This picture I think I took over in a wetland over in Medway or Medfield, this was Franklin. And then a tufted titmouse here. And then this will also nest in those birdhouses that the eastern bluebirds will nest in there as well too, because they nest in tree cavities, but not as common. And then here's its song. So, it's basically three sharp trills that people say it's Peter, 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 but... And the one you can mistake that for is a cardinal. Okay, the cardinals will be longer, but you can hear, and then those are three of the birds that were just like calling right out in the parking lot there. Yes, in the back. Yeah, so the question there is, are they laying their eggs and having the babies? And they're starting to, and it really picks up in May. Mm-hmm. They're making their nest, but some birds, especially if it's warm there in the bathroom vent, they might have started early when they're that small. So they could be chirping, depending on what species it is. I'm going to guess it's either a house sparrow or a Carolina wren. Yeah. And then speaking of nesting and stuff like that, another bird that's going to be around here that I'm going to talk about first is this one. And so this is a great horned owl. It's our second largest owl if we consider snowy owls, but this is one that's a resident here all year long. I took this picture 2 years ago just when I was walking for lunch, and very similar habit. This was in Canton where I work at the Museum of American Bird Education Center at the Nest, and then very similar habitat to right here. And so you see this picture of an owl, and then the picture that I showed you earlier. You think you might just be missing them, but here's another picture of an owl. Okay? And this is usually what the owls look like when you're looking at them and not seeing them. Okay? So it's right here. Those are its eyes. And those are its beak. Here it is up close, okay, with the eyes and the beak right here. And this is a screech owl. It's about the size of a pencil. It's about the size of a robin, maybe 3/4 if you have change in your pocket. So it's our most common owl and one of our smallest. So again, here and here. And this owl, I can't guarantee it, but on our walk, same thing with maybe the barred owl. It's probably listening or looking right at you. But because it blends in so well, if we go back to this photo, I can't erase, that stays on there now. But you can see the white in there and the white here. That matches the light color of the feathers. You can see the branch with the dark lines in there. So if you glance at something like that, your brain's lazy. And your brain, if there's trees all around, it's just saying tree, 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 tree. So even if the owl is right there, because it blends in so well, you're not going to see it. And this took me 10 minutes to find, and the only reason why I found it was because birds like the tufted titmice, blue jays, chickadees were attacking it. It's like mobbing. When birds sound really angry, there's usually a hawk around or a owl or a cat, another type of predator. They do like a community patrol, like to make sure that those aren't there. So I only saw it when it opened its eyes, when I was looking right at it. Because a lot of times when you're walking by, the owl looks like this. There's a great horned owl, believe it or not, in this photo. I'm not kidding. But this is what's usually happening, you know. And then it's tucked in right there, dead center. But its back is to us. And the only reason I saw this is because it flew in, and then when it saw me, you can see it wasn't too happy, okay? Right through here. And this owl, and I'm just going to kind of tell a bit of story. We've had them nest at the museum, at the Nest. We have an art studio called the Nest there. We have a 125-acre wildlife sanctuary. So for the past 3 years, we've found their nest, and they've been nesting there. And the last 2 years, they've had a total of 9 owlets, baby owls, that I'm going to talk a little bit about because we've been able to follow them. But here's the great horned owl. What you're seeing on this is just a spectrogram. It records the sound. So this is frequency, but think of how loud it is, high or low, and then this is just time. So I'm just going to play the great horned owl.
Great horned owl.
Okay. So they're hooting back and forth. And they're doing that a lot less right now because starting anywhere between January and the beginning to middle of March, they're going to be laying eggs and sitting on the nest. So when that happens, they still will talk to one another, but they're not going to be calling like that as much through there. So 2 years ago, we had a nest that had 2 owls in it. And both of them fell out of the nest, which usually isn't that big of a deal. And I'll talk about that while here. Okay. You can see owl number 1 and owl number 2. So this one fell out, the littler one fell out of the nest and was on the ground. Usually not a big deal, and I'll explain why in a minute. And we keep an eye on it. And then the next day, this one fell out of the nest, but it had a tiny little cut right here across its beak. So we're part of Mass Audubon. We do a lot of conservation. And at that time, if you've ever been to the Blue Hills Trailside Museum, for about 42 years, Norm Smith was the director. He retired, semi-retired, I think, in 2021, give or take, right around, or 2020, right around that time. That was 2019, right around that time. But he rescued over 800 snowy owls from Logan Airport. He's active in owl conservation. And when this one had a tiny cut that may or may not have been a big deal for it, at the same time, this owl was in the mouth of a dog down on the South Shore because it fell out of a nest at a dog park. So you couldn't put it back in the nest at a dog park because if it fell out again, it might be dog food there. So Norm, along with volunteers, built this nesting platform right here, and we put it up in our wildlife sanctuary on the top of a broken pine tree. And so you can see there's 1 owl there, there's 2 owls there. And believe it or not, the adult owls, like this one and this one, this is the male, the other one's the female, they might not look too friendly, but they will actually foster and take care of owls that they didn't give birth to, or didn't lay the eggs for and stuff like that. So 2 days went by, and then I took this picture. So you've got 1, you've got 2, both fosters, you got 3, and then you got the little one tucked in right here, right down there. Sometimes this one would look like a bat and be hanging underneath the branch. It was very playful. And they took care of all of them because these owls, believe it or not, will eat 15, 20 mice a day. So that's 80 mice that the parents are collecting, and bigger things. They eat up raccoons, they eat skunks, they eat squirrels and all that type of stuff too. But it's a lot of food that they have to catch. So if the food's there and they're able to, they'll feed them. And then last year we actually found their nest. So we could see it. And you can see that's the female. Those aren't ears, those are just feather tufts, but some people call them ears, and it's sitting in there. And so like right now we have they're sitting in a different nest. The picture's a lot harder to get with the way it's tucked in, so I don't have that in here. But what I want to show you is what the nest looks like. This is a video from South Carolina, and there's 2 owls in here. So where's owl number 1 and owl number 2? So that's owl number 2. So this is in February from South Carolina in 2015. But what I want to give you a sense of what's happening in the nest right now is our great horned owl changed position about a week ago. So we think the eggs hatched. And so this is about the size of the owl that's probably in the nest right now over in Canton. So if there's a great horned owl nesting somewhere in Walpole, which there most certainly is, the baby might be about this big. If we jump ahead 2 weeks, so today's what, the 10th, I think, or the 11th, the 10th. So let's go to like April 24th and see what the owls will look like. Okay, so here it is 2 weeks later. So 2 weeks later, so these 2 owls would have eaten approximately 140 to 160 mice each in there. You can see how quickly they're growing. And then I want to jump ahead to 2 months right here. So this would be June, July is how big they are right here. Okay. And I want you to look at their talons, their feet, and they're clumsy. They're kind of that awkward, clumsy teenage phase here. And you can watch them trying to figure out their wings. But I want you to watch the bigger one's going to start pumping its wings and practicing to fly in just a second. Because I want to go back to the part where I said it's not that big of a deal if they leave the nest and fall out. Okay. All right. Okay. So their talons, when they squeeze, it's kind of the equivalent of if a refrigerator fell on your foot. Okay? It's about 1,000 pounds of pressure is what they can put in there. So if you notice, these ones are much smaller than, I apologize, the quality's not transferring as well. It's a better picture in there, but their feet, when they fall out of the tree, we have things like fishers, and that's a large weasel, and crows, and hawks. So when they find out where the nest is, it might be dangerous for them to stay in there. And so when to get back up into the trees, even if they can't fly, they're able to pump their wings and use their talons and run up the trees and then kind of hop around to move around. And so it's safer there. And so the following year, like I showed, here's what the nest looks like. So here's the female, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and then there's a 4th one right here. And we ended up also fostering for a 5th owl. And so in this nest, I don't know which one of these was, they actually kicked one of the owlets out, okay, because it was too small and runty. And so they found it out of the ground, and then Norm took that back to Trailside and fed it about 20 to 30 mice a day. And over a month, it got back up to weight, and we brought it back. And so we think out of the 2 years, at least 7 of the 9 survived through there. And then when you see this one, the reason I say this is the male, you can't tell it's a little small, but you can see the eyes are much yellower right there compared to the female there. So that's why I think we have the male and the female right there. And you can see it really puffing itself up. And then here's just a few of the owlets from last year. And here's the awkward teenage phase of the owls, as you can see here. And the other owl that'll be pretty active around here, along with the screech owl, I just don't have as good photos of them. So you can see this is early May. You can see the sugar maple trees are leafing out right here. But right now, when you're around, especially near water, I want you to think of them being up in the trees, kind of like waiting and watching. And here's what it sounds like.
Barred owl.
So it sounds a little bit like a dog. And then the way that people help remember is, who cooks for you, who cooks for you all?
Barred owl.
Who cooks for you, who cooks for you all? And they duet back and forth. And so that noise right there, this owl is making that noise this morning, the second one. They do a lot of different calls because we have something very odd happening in Canton where the barred owls and the great horned owls are very close to one another. Great horned owls will eat barred owls. Barred owls are really tough too, so they wouldn't go down easy, but they usually don't share habitat. But these two pictures, this owl is not, how far would it be? it's no farther than 200 feet away from the great horned owl nest right here at the vernal pool. So they're crossing over habitats, which is really neat and interesting. And it was doing these guttural calls and was looking around everywhere because it might have been looking for the great horned owl or another hawk or something there, but they're really tough owls. But what I want you to highlight here, since it's springtime, is think of these owls being in the trees. And I know this isn't an owl right here, okay? This is a wood frog. So if you ever walk by ponds in the woods this time of year and you hear like quacking ducks and there's no ducks in there, and I'll play a song, their noise in a minute. These wood frogs are here, and right when they wake up from the winter time, they race to get into the vernal pools to lay their eggs. I'll just circle this here so you can see, but there's about 300 eggs right here in the back legs of the female. I'm going to show pictures and videos of the eggs in just a second, and I'm going to explain how this connects to birds and in general and owls in particular. But this is a picture of the vernal pool in Canton in February. It's all frozen. Again, it's not very deep, couple feet at most. It only gets water from rain and snow, so there's no stream going in. There's nothing coming out of it. When the summer comes, it acts like a reservoir for all the trees and plants around there that suck up all the water and it drains out. But here's a really odd picture of a frog. And it only is odd when you notice that this is right here. Okay. And what's there is snow. And you never see frogs sitting on ice, because typically if a frog is out when it's ice, it's dead because it would have frozen. But these frogs have a really, really interesting way to get through the winter and survive. They go in the ground no bigger than the pencil, like deep. So when it was February and January this year, when it was like 10 degrees, 5 degrees, they were frozen solid. And if you put a turtle in a freezer or a frog in a freezer or anything else in a freezer and freeze it, they're typically going to die. Like that's just not the way that they can survive. The cells are going to break and they're going to die. But these wood frogs, starting in like October, when they start to hibernate or go into the mud, they fill their body up with sugar. So if anybody gives you a hard time about eating too much sugar, you can just say, I'm acting like a wood frog. But what they're doing is the liver is filled up with sugar, their muscles are filled up with sugar, their heart, their lungs, and other organs and stuff like that. So if you've ever frozen a Pepsi or a soda, you'll notice that it's like kind of like syrupy or slushy. And what happens is when the frogs start to freeze, they also have a glycoprotein that's an antifreeze protein too, but when they start to freeze in the cells in particular, they'll freeze, but the water won't form crystals. And if it doesn't form crystals, it doesn't break the cell membrane. It just kind of pushes on it. So on the first day when it gets really warm, they're able to come out into the vernal pool as quickly as possible to lay their eggs when all the other animals are still waiting to wake up. And this is a video. Okay. All the ripples here are wood frogs moving around. They were even jumping on ice, and seeing a frog jump on ice is really funny. But there was about 500 wood frogs in this really tiny pond that we have here called a vernal pool, just waiting to get out there. And I just want to kind of show you, here's a video of the vernal pool. Like, I want to give you a sense of like what's going on underneath it, because this ties into birds a lot as well too. But like, what does it look like underwater of this kind of like nondescript, unimportant pond? And it's not unimportant. So I'm going to go underwater. This is from March. So right here, this is a video that I took, and this maybe is about only like 4 feet in length of the video right here, and everything swimming there is something called a fairy shrimp. Okay, and they come out for a few weeks of the year in the pond, but you can see the water is really clear. It gets the brown color from the oak leaves that's right there, but there's hundreds to even thousands of these fairy shrimp in this very small portion of the pond where I'm taking the video. And that kind of ties back into the frogs. They come there to lay their eggs. And then what do the legs actually look like when they're underwater? So this is right here. Every dot that you see there is a wood frog, either tadpole or embryo. And so when it lays the eggs, because that's 300 eggs right there, give or take, there's a chemical reaction that happens that produces like a mucus or a jelly that goes around the eggs. Because this might only be from one wood frog, but that's like 300, 400 eggs right there. Okay, so you'll see a tadpole swim down right here in just a second. That's a different species of frog that was there over winter. But if you see all the little dust particles, Those are all animals that are almost microscopic or microscopic swimming around there. If we had a microscope, you could actually see their heart beating, but they're copepods and Daphnia. And when I want to show you actually a wood frog hatching right here, so this part of the screen right here. So you can see how small they are. So those thousands of like little dust-like particles that are actually animals, the wood frogs are eating them. The fairy shrimp, they're filter feeding a lot of stuff in there, but there's lots and lots of animals. This is like above and below view of what the eggs look like, tadpoles, the eggs that are hatched. You can see the red flowers in there, so it's red maple flowers, just like you saw with the barred owl photo a little earlier. So this was 2 years ago, basically the same time of year right here. And so there can be, millions and millions of living things in this one tiny bit of water that you might not even notice. And it's got to be really clean, really clear, really healthy, because the animals can't survive like the frogs, the salamanders. But this whole time, the owls are there waiting and watching, okay? So I want you to watch right here. This is a trail camera that we have that turns on when there's movement. So did you ever know that owls fly into the water? So it's hunting frogs or salamanders, and if this was in a pond that had fish in it, it will pull lots of fish out too. So the owls that are really common here love to, will do a lot of, hunting in the water. They liked it so much they'd land on the trail camera. Okay? And I want you to watch its head move in a second. This is, 9:15 at night, no moon, so dark. Okay? And if you go back to the frog here, think of this at 9 o'clock at night in the water or at the surface. Its color is going to be almost identical to the water surface. So the owl here, and I can talk more about this if you'd like, the owl is seeing through hearing right here. It's hearing it, it's able to calculate where the frog actually is and go in and catch it. And this video is from about 5 years ago, right there. But this is from 2 weeks ago. So this is the different trail camera, a little bit more updated one, but you can actually see there's something in its talons right there. It's in the water, balancing itself. It's flying across. Again, something right there, probably a frog. You can see it flying away right there. And then here, it's actually moving around in the water trying to get something. And this is at 4:54 in the morning on March 23rd this year. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. I'll play the Spring Peeper song just for you in a second here. And then this is just from April 5th, this one. So watch the top, watch this corner right here. See? And you can see it's perching right up in there. So if this camera was in here, you'd have no idea this stuff was going on. This is at a little after midnight. But it's, again, waiting and watching right there. This stuff is happening, and we usually can't see it. And then the question here was about a spring peeper. This is a spring peeper right here. Okay. This is a leaf. So just a simple oak leaf, maple leaf. I took this picture a few years ago. Here's the part of the maple leaf right here. So again, you're looking at maybe the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit smaller. If you sat next to that all night while it was calling, you'd probably go deaf. They're about 120 to 150 decibels. It's like a jackhammer or a rock concert. It's louder than that. And again, it's about this big. And so the spring peeper call, I'm going to go back to this video right here. All the calls right, that background noise right there, those are all spring peepers calling. Yep. Yeah, so you'll probably hear that up through the next 2 weeks, maybe 3. And so the wood frogs are coming to the vernal pools. They're laying their eggs around with salamanders, but it's a really vital, important habitat for the barred owls and a lot of other animals. Because you can think how this can feed up to other animals. I have raccoons are coming there, foxes. But then all the insects that are living there, like dragonflies and other things, those are going to be food for the birds as well too. So there's a lot of these ecological connections with all the biodiversity that's there.
Excuse me.
Yes.
When you're coming in a Provincetown Cape
Mhm.
Cod in October.
Mhm.
They close Route 6, and it's something to do with frogs crossing.
So the question is just about Route 6 being closed at certain times in the fall because frogs are crossing. So there's probably, I can't say what the animals, but it could be a spadefoot toad or something which is endangered, or they're crossing to basically go to a habitat where they're going to hibernate. The hibernation is not the right word, but I think it's estivation. But they're basically going to hunker down for the winter time. So they're probably doing something like that. Yeah. And now I'll talk a little bit about our migratory songbirds, but does anybody have any other questions about anything? Yes. So a mourning dove, let me see, and an owl. Let me see if I can pull the song up ask me at the end, and I'll turn the presentation off, and I'll pull. I think I've got the sound on my computer, but I definitely have it on my phone, so I can play both, so you can hear that. Oh, wait, I can just do it right now on my phone. See, they're not all bad. Yeah, so here's a mourning dove call. So it sounds like an owl, but you're going to hear it during the day. Let me try it again. So you're going to hear it in that kind of 4-part pattern there. And so it's got that like lower hooting noise to it, but you'll only hear it, you might hear it at dawn or at dusk, but it's gonna come in that 4 type of parts right there. And then just kind of getting used to hearing that. And if it's you usually hearing it, it's gonna be a mourning dove. Owls just don't call nearly as much in areas where you're gonna be in. Okay, you're welcome, yes. Mm. Sure. So, yeah. It's the questions about getting rid of woodpeckers. Yeah.
Do they attract to different colors of their house? If your house is yellow?
So the questions about color of the house and woodpeckers, probably not. Yeah, it probably doesn't have. Sometimes you'll need to move to to get rid of the wood. If it's this time of year and it's really loud, they're knocking on metal or something else to attract a mate or tell somebody else to go away. If it's throughout the year, you might have some rotting fascia wood, and there's a beetle larva or something else in there where they're trying to get the food. But if it's right now and it's really loud, they're using your house as basically an amplifier. And that would stop probably in a month or two. But it depends. Some people will hang shiny pieces of tinfoil or metal up to distract them. That sometimes works. And like I said, if it's wood that has some insects or ants, like a carpenter ant colony or something like that in there, replacing the wood can help, but sometimes it's hard. Yep. Yeah.
Migratory birds.
Mm-hmm.
I was down in Texas a couple of years ago with COVID. I got stuck in
Mm-hmm.
the basement. At March, underneath the highways, there's thousands of birds fly back to Mexico. Have you ever heard of that? I've got pictures of it.
I'll talk about what's happening with migratory birds right now. So it's just about migratory birds, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. So what I want to kind of talk about is, migration. I'll answer questions about that, but I want to kind of talk about what triggers it and how we know so much about it, and I can go into depth there. But one of the early birds that'll be coming through this area, and this doesn't nest here, it keeps going farther north. This is a yellow-rumped warbler, also known as like a butterbutt here that I'll show with this one. But I want to come back to the picture of the tufted titmouse, even though it's not a migratory bird, and I'm going to come back to another warbler picture too. But you'll have a lot of warblers mixing in here over the next couple of weeks, especially in early May. But I want to highlight, you can see the dogwoods blooming. I took this picture at Mount Auburn Cemetery years ago. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 caterpillars at least are in its beak right there. Okay. And then this is a magnolia warbler, a picture that I took over in Canton. All right. And you can see, here's a birch tree that's just starting to leaf out. You can see the caterpillar in there. And somehow the caterpillar is gone in this picture. Here, and then again, you can see the magnolia warbler picture here. But back to the yellow-rumped warbler. This is a cherry tree that it's hanging upside down in, looking around the leaves. But this is a picture that I took during COVID when my daughter had gymnastics while I was waiting. It's not a good picture in terms of like, oh, thanks. But in terms of the exposure, but what I want to highlight, this is an oak tree with the catkins coming out, and you can see the oak coming out right here. And it doesn't look like there's anything going on in the picture other than the bird, right? So then it looks in there, and then as it comes out, right here, it's got a caterpillar or a flying insect. I can't really tell which. But in this oak catkin right here, catkin is just what releases the pollen. There could be one, but there could be upwards of 50, 60 insects in this little part of the tree right here. And you can see those don't look like oak leaves because they're just coming out. But this time of year, when the leaves are coming out, not only are you going to get the birds coming back, but they're falling the leaf out because they eat 95% of our nesting birds in North America, like the songbirds, they need to eat insects and they need to feed them to their young, like the bluebirds, to survive. So like now, there's nothing wrong with having a bird feeder out or anything like that. That's totally fine. But that's just supplemental. If they can't get protein from insects, the baby birds won't make it right here. And then here's just the yellow-rumped warbler's song, just so you can hear that.
Yellow-rumped warbler.
And so migration, what's kind of happening there, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about that, is this is a painting done by Charlie Harper. This is in the collection of the Museum of American Bird Art, and it's called Mystery of the Missing Migrants. And Charlie was an incredible artist, and he looked at things of how simple a form he could use to get the point across. Like he wouldn't look at feathers, he'd look at how many wings and stuff like that. And this actually tells a beautiful story about migration that I'm going to come back to. I'm just going to let you look at it now. But you can even see like this little hummingbird. You can see that it's small and fast here because instead of wings, it's got lines because the wings are beating so fast. Right here. You can see that it's a huge mixed flock of birds. It's not one type of bird. It's a lot of different species here. But he painted this in the 90s, kind of like Rachel Carson in Silent Spring, to draw attention to a lot of the birds that he loved watching. He noticed that there were fewer and fewer and fewer of them, especially his favorite wood thrush, which is right here. And we know now that there's about 2 to 3 billion less birds now than there were just 50 years ago. So I want to talk about things that you can also do in your yard and in Walpole to help that. And since I know people love hummingbirds, I'll talk about hummingbirds. And the white right here is my porch. I live in Mansfield. This is within 5 feet of a sidewalk that a lot of people walk down. So in this, what I'm showing here is if you have the flowers, even if it's right in downtown Mansfield in a suburb, you'll get the birds, or you'll have more there because they provide a lot of food in terms of insects and also in terms of cover, shelter, nectar, and stuff like that. But what I want to highlight here is you're going to have a nesting hummingbird within a quarter mile here, if not within sight of the center. But their nests are impossible to find. If you have the plants there, the flowering plants, because half of their diet's insects too. They eat about 50% insects as well, in addition to the nectar that they need from like your hummingbird feeders or your flowers and stuff like that. So to show you about migration and talk about this is from Cornell, and this is a collection of data from the past 15 years, from 2005 to 2020. And the yellow means there's some hummingbirds there. The darker color means there's a lot. And this is going to end up being a video going through each month that I'm going to show you in terms of migration. So February, March, here comes April, whoosh, May, June, July, August, September, whoosh, October, November, December. And so you can think of the flowers and plants coming out, but as you get closer to the equator down here, and there's plenty of birds that nest down at the equator too, daylight is relatively constant. 12 hours, whatever, like here. But as you get into summertime up here, especially up in the Arctic, you might have 19, 20, 21 hours. Plus you have a lot more food sources up here. In terms of like black fly season in Maine, Arctic, stuff like that. There's just an abundance of food. So with hummingbirds, the red, this is where they're breeding, and this is the ruby-throated. So if you looked at the Anna's hummingbird, it's kind of the western ruby-throat. It would be this whole side right through here. Blue is going to be wintertime, and yellow is during the migration right through here. So kind of just highlighting the migration of hummingbirds in the nest because it's really beautiful. For that, but you're gonna have lots of different birds flying through soon. In a couple of weeks, you're gonna have this little bird. This is a black and white warbler. I took this picture in a parking lot. Okay, it's just the right time of year. It was right near my car. It was the same time I took the yellow-rumped warbler right here. But has anybody seen these this year so far? Okay. You've got the red-winged blackbirds. This is the male. The females are up too. The males come up a couple weeks earlier to kind of fight over territories. Soon, if not already, but some of these overwinter. This is a catbird. So if you hear like a meowing bird, this is the catbird, and this lives up here the whole time. And near the water right here, you'll have catbirds nesting. I showed you the pictures of the bluebirds. These are now starting to overwinter more and more. You can see food coming in, trash coming out right here with the male and female. And then this yellow warbler, I bet, will nest near here too. So this is one that nests like in open areas near water. So I wouldn't be surprised. This will definitely nest down the trail here. I'd be surprised if this wasn't nesting here. But bird migration. So starting now up through May, you'll have hundreds of thousands of birds flying at night. Excuse me, hundreds of millions of birds flying at night. I didn't mean hundreds of thousands. They'll typically take off a little after sunset and land a little before dawn. And these are the songbirds. Hawks and other raptors, they typically migrate during the day. Some birds will fly for a couple days at a time. You'll have like the red knot and other sandpipers and shorebirds flying thousands of miles at a time over a week. Some go from Patagonia down in Peru all the way up to the Arctic without stopping. And so what I kind of want to highlight here is how do we know this and how, like, what's going on right here, like with this, and we will use the yellow warbler as an example. So one thing that's gotten really good at detecting this over the past 30, 40 years is weather radar. So the flocks are so big and they have got their own signature. Like rain looks like this, snow looks like this. Well, bird flocks look like something else. So you can actually use weather radar to do that. And in areas where a lot of birds fly through, so this is Cape May, New Jersey. This is Delaware Bay and the Delaware Gap, and this is Delaware. Right here in the blue, that's a weather surveillance radar station. And right here at the Gap, which I'll just circle in green, believe it or not, they have recording devices that can record the birds flying over, like their songs, and they also have heat cameras so they can see how hot they are, basically telling how big the flock is. And that yellow warbler at night talks in a certain way. That's the one down there. So they can record all these, put them into a computer, compare it to the weather radar, and know approximately how many birds are actually flying over and what species they are, because the songs are all different. And that would allow them, since we know this is a really important migratory flyway, if there's a bird that's endangered and they need to make sure, let's say there's climate change, so there's beach erosion here and it protects X bird, X, Y, and Z, they can focus on protecting that area and stuff like that. So that's why that data is really important to have. So if we look at Charlie Harper again, you'll notice that it's stars in the picture, so it's happening at night. You'll notice there's lots of different species flying, again. And then if you look down in the bottom corner right here, it's palm trees. So they're starting out Florida, Central America, and stuff like that. So it's a really beautiful story. He also has a sense of humor. So you can see one bird ending here and starting here. So it's coming on both sides. So this is last night. This is the bird migration forecast for last night. So last night there were 90 million birds flying through the country. Okay? You can see the darker areas is where there's more birds. So Texas, Baja, California, Arizona, Massachusetts, not so much. But then if we hop to like a main migration time period in May, so last, May 17th, 2022, 360 million birds flying through the country. Okay. 2 Septembers ago, 258 million birds flying through the country. Over 3 nights, over 1 billion birds at this time period. 250 million, 420, 417, which is over 1 billion birds moving through the country. So right down here, April 24th, the peak migration in Florida, that's that date, so a couple weeks from now. And we look at May 9th and May 12th, and with climate change, these are getting a little bit earlier, but right around that May 10th and 11th is when we have the most birds moving through Massachusetts into the migration. So that's like, on the walk here, that will take in a little bit, or just when you're walking through here, you'll start to see more of those birds coming up. And here's like the red-winged blackbird that's already up here. This is an early migrant, and here's what it sounds like.
Red-winged blackbird.
And, they love the wetland habitats here, where you can see it in this picture right here. This is a picture I took over in Franklin, but, down by the ponds right here, there's lots over in lots of different wetland habitat. And these have, the males and females look different. So here's the male and here's the female. So the female creates the nest, lays on the eggs, and it's in reeds. So you can see the reeds that are right there. I took that over at Patriot Place. But, it's going to blend in right there where the male is really exposed and really obvious. And here again is the female right here. So completely different color patterns that you have there with those.
It's amazing that with all the millions of migrant birds, there aren't more birds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the question is about plane strikes. That's why when I talked about the snowy owls earlier, in the past, they would just shoot the snowy owl if it was at an airport or get rid of it. And so Norm would trap them and move them to places like Duxbury Beach and stuff like that. So and because they can be picked up on radar, the bird flocks, they can alter, if there's a big migration coming through, they can alter it. Because I just want to show you, since you bring this up, this is a weather radar forecast from a few years ago in February over the Florida Keys. So, all right. So, where's the time? 1 in the morning, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoosh. Not a thunderstorm. It's a bird. It's a flock of birds. Yeah. And so they can also tell the difference if they're insects as well too, and everything like that. So one other bird that comes up now too. Is anybody familiar with this is a small inland sandpiper called a woodcock. Does anybody know those? So right now, if you hear this noise, it's this, and these are around here. You can hear the spring peepers in the background. Sounds like a dog toy. Okay. Yeah, a lot of insects. Yep. Yeah. And then to close, because I've seen wood ducks right down the pathway here multiple times when they're coming through. This is a common duck, but you rarely see it because it's so skittish, and you don't normally see ducks up in trees. These happen to land above my head here, but they actually nest up in trees, and believe it or not, even with its bright colors here, when it's in the water, it actually blends in really well with the reflection on the side. So that's the male, and then that's the female. And these nest in tree holes as well, too. But if we go back to the trail camera that I had set up during the day, okay, you can see 2 males. This is like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay. And then here's another one. But hear the noise? Kind of sounds a little bit like a zipper. That's the male making its call. And so here's a video that I took a few years ago. So you could walk right by them and not even know they're above your head. Another duck that'll be around here is a hooded merganser. These are tiny little ducks too, and these nest in trees as well. And these will occasionally be down in the pond down the street as well too, and they're really fun to watch. Look at that head. You know, you can see this is what it looks like when it's flying. And so like right here, I want to show them dancing. This is from Stony Brook in Norfolk at the Mass Audubon Sanctuary. So you can see all the males dancing around the females right there. They're outnumbered as usual. Yep, yeah, trying to impress them. Exactly. And so that's a wood duck box or a hooded merganser box that they'll nest in because they nest in holes within trees. And so to close here, this is like a black and white. This is a blue-winged warbler. The palm warblers are coming up. But as the tree, this is a Nashville warbler, but as the leaves come out, they need tons of food and insects. So you can see this Nashville warbler using its beak like tweezers to go through the cherry tree. This is just outside the office window at where I work. You can see this northern parallel warbler just all in Canton eating all these insects. So what I want to close with here, and something that you can do, is if you see this nest of chickadees that are a day old right here, and there's 5 of them in here, 1, 2, 3. There's a 4th one here, and then the egg right here. Right here, you know, the chickadees will nest in soft and decaying wood, but what is that chickadee parent here as it's starting to excavate this? How many insects does it need to collect over like the 3 or 4 weeks that it's in its nest so those chickadees can survive? This is a chickadee that's about to fledge from the nest right here. From here. And so it's going to need to collect, along with its partner, about 6,000 to 10,000 insects over like 3, 4, 5 weeks. And if we go back to the picture, just as we're closing here, of the tufted titmouse from the beginning, right here, the dogwood tree in the back there, that's a native dogwood. That can have like 270 or so different types of insects that are eating it, like the caterpillars you're seeing right there. If you go a little bit later and you see the dogwoods that are blooming in like later in May and June, those are kozu dogwoods that are from, I believe, Japan, but they're from Asia. And those have 0 insects that eat it. So they're functionally like a desert for like the chickadees and stuff like that. Like a native oak tree can have about 600 to 700 different types of caterpillars that eat it, depending on the part of the country that it's in. And like a Norway maple, which is introduced from Europe, might have 30. So planting native plants, like I showed you the ironweed with the hummingbird, you know, the bee bombs, they can really do a huge difference for our native birds that we all love that have declined by a couple of billion in the past couple of years. And it's something that you can do even in a hanging basket or a potted plant and stuff like that. But with that, I'll take any questions and we'll get going on the walk in maybe like 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then you next.
We have a three garage,
Mm-hmm.
detached garage, and I catch a lot of mice there.
Mm-hmm.
I usually bury them because when they eat the poison,
Yeah.
but some of them get out. They can kill an owl, right?
Yeah. So the point that was just brought up is about using rat poison and mouse poison to kill mice. That Mass Audubon's really working to end that, because when I talked about like an owl feeding its babies 20, 30 mice a day, slow mice are going to be poisoned. And then if that mouse is eating 10 mice a day that's full of anticoagulants, it's warfarin and other things like that, very rapidly it's going to end up dying and get neurological problems. And it's a huge risk to our raptors. Over the past 10 years, the number of snowy owls with rodenticide found in their liver and body parts has basically quadrupled. And so a lot of larger birds, and this is like with Rachel Carson and the DDT, it bioaccumulates going up, where ospreys almost went extinct in the 70s until they banned DDT because of the eggshells. The same thing's happening right now with owls and hawks and other raptors because they're eating so many mice and other rodents that have been poisoned and they don't die right away. Whereas using a snap trap or something else that kills it right away is going to be much better for the birds. So like it's those black boxes that you might see around buildings and stuff like that. So I think Newburyport or Newbury's banned the use of them in their town. Like so Mass Audubon's working on a campaign to get towns to limit the use of those anticoagulants. And then you had a question. I'll get back to you. Yes.
I was wondering, I think I noticed in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the spring now, maybe a month ago, that the period of time that was very, very cold, it was very, very quiet with the birds, but the other time in the fall, and also starting again now, I mean, they're all having conversations with
Yeah.
each other. I'm out in the yard, and I only live right down the street.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, and
Yeah.
I'd love to learn, get the app so that I could.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll pull it up on the screen in just a second, or I'll figure out a way to do it. But there's also seasonality to bird songs and when they're calling. So what I always notice too, starting because I go running every morning, and starting like a little bit after the new year is, well, I took the slide down, but the tufted titmice start calling a lot more. And then into February, you start to hear the songs. What they're doing is they're trying to basically say like, I'm a good potential mate, or hey, other potential mates, get away, I'm better than you type of thing. So they're doing that a lot with the songs. And then when they get on their nests in a little while, it'll quiet down again. And in the fall, because the daylight matches the springtime, they start making the same calls a lot for a short period of time in October. That doesn't mean they're not singing throughout the year, but it's a lot more prevalent now, especially in the morning. So it's a great point. Yes.
And I do have birds that are nesting in my farmer's porch. I have like these
Oh, yeah, yeah.
back every year. I was gonna try and prevent them from being there, but I think I'm not. I'm just gonna leave them alone and let them do what they need to do. But they're small birds. I think they're wrens.
Okay, yeah, those are probably Carolina wrens, and they really like that. Hold on, I'm just gonna see if I can find the app. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So, it's called Merlin, like the bird, and it's the Merlin Bird ID. It's a free app from Cornell, so you'll be able to download that. And yeah. Yes, in the back.
Full of birds about 2 weeks ago, and you could tell, like, one bird would call down and look around, and then the others would come and line up, and it just stopped.
The birds. Yeah.
Is it because of the weather changes abruptly, the rain, the temperature, all of that?
So the question's about birds and their activity from a couple of weeks ago, and then being really active and then just stopping. So it could have to do with the weather, or they may have paired up and mated, and then now they're building nests and spots, and they're not being as noisy as well too. So like it could just be the time of year, and their behaviors changed a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I could ask 1,000 questions.
Sure.
So there it is on my
Mm-hmm.
phone. Now what do we do with it?
Oh, you got to set it up, but
Oh, I thought I did, and I
yeah.
thought it said it was installed. It's not installed yet.
I think they just need your email address, but I can help with that in a little bit too.
So
Yeah.
my question
Mhm.
is, when you take the bird walks like
Mm-hmm.
at Stony Brook, you see all these birds and they put the scope on it. When you go out by yourself, you know, you might
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
see 4 birds. Is that about?
It's just
I don't
practice.
see
Yeah.
what you see.
Well, it's just again, it's just kind of doing it more and more and getting used to it, and then you'll start to see the little hidden patterns and stuff like that.
Showing the
Yeah.
pool. I always look down wondering what's.
Oh,
How'd
thank.
you get that picture?
I have a little camera called a GoPro camera, and I just shove it under the water. Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's a technique of me just shoving the camera underwater. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Sean, you're talking about migratory birds.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that we have robins all through the year.
Mm-hmm.
But it also seems to me that the robins seem to come too
Yep.
around this time of year. What's happening there with the migratory?
So the question is about robins and migratory robins, and we have robins all throughout the year. We have I'm not saying we don't have the same robin in the spring and the fall and the winter. They're probably different robins. And the robins in the springtime that are moving in now, and I'm not saying this is absolutely sure, are probably migrating up Long Island, North Carolina, Virginia, and stuff like that. And the robins that we have in the wintertime are probably migrating here from Canada. Yeah, I just recognized you. Yeah, that's why I paused for a second. Yeah, hey Janet, it's great to see you. Yeah.
To feed the birds, when should I stop feeding them?
So the question's about when should you stop feeding the birds. If you like feeding them, keep feeding them.
Keep on doing.
Yeah, you're not going to hurt anything. I mean, they don't need it. They don't need it in the spring and summertime. They need insects, but if you like them coming, that's fine.
And that's
Yeah,
one
yeah.
question.
Yep.
Since my bird feeder is rather new, I didn't realize how many birds we have.
Mm-hmm.
So now comes the question, do I fertilize my lawn? What do I do about the crabgrass and fertilization? Is that hurting the birds?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, because especially if you're putting, so the question is about fertilizing or putting pesticides in the lawn. So there's going to be a lot of bees that nest in your lawn. If you're putting pesticides down, you're going to kill the ground nesting bees that are essential for the plants to be pollinated and stuff like that. The fertilizer can run off. Again, it's all within a balance in what you want to do, but that can run off into the water and make it a little bit more polluted. So like all the stuff that you saw there won't grow and stuff like that. So it's just kind of learning to deal with what you're comfortable with.
Well, I don't want to kill the birds.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have to kind of do a better,
Crabgrass isn't pretty either.
right, so you got to kind of balance that. Yeah.
I do not